Hey guys, this is my sister Tara.
And this is my sister Brittany. And welcome back to My Sister's Nightmare, a horror review channel for horror fans.
By horror fans. Pring! Pring! Pring!
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
Oh, fuck no, I hate kids. Hey guys, welcome back to another horror review. For our second installment in Home Invasion Horror Month, we have chosen
When a Stranger Calls.
from 2006, a remake of a classic horror film.
I haven't seen the original, but
I've seen the original, and though it's good, and we'll probably, I'm sure, review it in the
definitely.
future at some point, I may be in the minority on this one, but I actually really like this remake here. It, takes the opening of the original film and makes a full-length feature film of it. So I think it was a really good idea story-wise, and yeah, I was really happy with it myself.
I look forward to seeing the original.
This film stars Camilla Bell as Jill Johnson and Tommy Flanagan as the Stranger, but the Stranger is voiced by Lance Henriksen, I believe.
I knew it wasn't Tommy Flanagan when I heard the voice. Tommy Flanagan has a very deep Scottish accent because he's from Glasgow.
Gotcha.
More on Tommy Flanagan later.
And this film is directed by Simon West. So a quick summary of the story. It starts out with a girl who is grounded for going over her minutes on her cell phone.
The good old days of going over your minutes.
Mind you guys, this is the cell phone era, but pre-smartphone. So we're talking a lot of plastic flip phones, and
I believe like the poster of this movie even has like a razor as the as the cell phone.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. So her punishment is that she has to go and babysit to help repay her parents part of the minutes she went over.
Yeah.
So while she's at this babysitting job, she gets mysterious phone calls from a stranger.
I just want to throw in too, this is her first time babysitting for this couple or these kids or being in this house, so just the environment itself is new for her.
Absolutely, new place. And throughout the night, the calls escalate and escalate until we get to the third act where all hell breaks loose.
Breaks loose.
So, starting at the very beginning of the movie, it starts out with the opening credits, and you're hearing a phone call. You don't see these characters, you just hear them, but it's a young girl who's obviously babysitting, getting mysterious phone calls. I think she says her name is Stacy. And it's just, as the opening credits are continuing, these phone calls are just kind of going back and forth until the opening credits end, and it cuts to this house, and you see a light go on with a shadow, and brah.
Yeah.
So after the opening credits are done, we see a police officer showing up to the house, and he goes inside, and it is we don't see it on screen ourselves. We just see the police officer's reaction to it all. But it is a pretty gruesome, brutal scene. 2 to 3 dead children, a dead babysitter, and we find out through some dialogue that there was no murder weapon. They were essentially just torn apart.
That's crazy.
And then the scene kind of ends with the police officer just visibly shaken outside by what he's seen, and the body bags are being carried out. And then it cuts to 125 miles away in a town called Fern Hill, Colorado. And it cuts to our lead actress, whose name, like we said, is Jill. She's at school doing her track practice.
And she's running along the track that's up above, like the gymnasium in her
Which I gotta
school.
say, I thought was cool because I've never seen a track above a gymnasium in a school before.
I remember the first time I watched it, and I think I was like 13 when this movie came out. I thought that was so neat because I had
Me
never
too.
seen that before. So it cuts, to her at the school. She's doing her track, and then I believe it shows her talking with her friends. She's going through a breakup.
Because one of her best friends kissed her boyfriend.
Tiffany.
So we meet Jill and her friend Scarlett in art class. Scarlett's discussing the bonfire that's happening that night, a big school event. And Jill is telling Scarlett that she is grounded because of going over those minutes and that she has to babysit. Lame.
I remember Dad getting so mad at me for going over my minutes one time.
Real thing back in the day, guys, before this
Yeah.
unlimited minute business.
Yeah, it's a weird thing about those days now.
And they even mentioned in the movie, which is great. Do you remember how, like, back in the day, it used to be free after 7 o'clock or after 8 o'clock? Because the dad even mentions when they're on the way to this babysitting job that you could have just have waited until 8 o'clock, Jill.
Yeah, that was fun. It's just nostalgia.
Yeah,
Because we were
nostalgia.
teenagers when this came out, so it's so, it's just fun.
So, yeah, Jill's on her way to the babysitting job. Her dad is driving her because part of her punishment is no car, no phone for a month. So they're driving up to this house, and when they arrive, they are both pretty stunned by the house.
It's gorgeous.
It is a beautiful house, and I must add that in this movie, because most of it is shot in or outside of the house is almost like a character itself in the movie, I feel.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Very unique, very luxurious and modern, especially for the time that this was made in 2006.
Like the whole front of the house that's kind of like on the pond.
It's
all
like a
glass.
little pond lake and these floor to ceiling big windows and
Yeah, all glass.
beautiful, very beautiful. Lots of wood, dark wood tones throughout the house. And although I have to add that, so 2 kids live in this house, 2 young kids that Jill's babysitting. This house is so not kid friendly.
No,
You would have no idea that children live anywhere near this house.
there's nothing that would let you know that kids are in that house. And there's quite a few things that would make you think that kids are not in that house. Like some weird statues and things like that that are
Yeah.
really creepy looking. And it's like, you have young children, you
Did you
weirdos.
notice even some of the artwork had that same like creepy like kind of statue?
It's like I can't, that was a little unrealistic. 'Cause I don't think any parent with young kids would have that kind of stuff in their house.
Yeah, definitely not.
And what I thought was weird is when Jill first gets to the house, she doesn't meet the kids.
Yeah, the kids are mysteriously already sleeping, even though it's
Not
bright
even
daylight
It's
out.
not even dusk yet. It is.
In the movie's defense, the kids are supposedly getting over the flu. Still a bit of a stretch, but yeah, the kids are asleep when Jill arrives.
Well, especially since it's her first time babysitting these kids. As a parent, wouldn't you want your kids to know the babysitter in case they wake up and they're not feeling good or whatever, and they've got to go find the person that's watching them? You would want to know who that is, and not just some stranger you've never even seen before. So I thought that was so weird. I did think that was weird.
And another thing that really throws me off, especially on rewatch, and maybe I'm getting a little too picky here, guys, I will admit that, but why do they need a babysitter in the first place? They have the maid Rosa. The kids are asleep.
I thought that too. I genuinely thought that. I'm like, why are they hiring a babysitter if they have the maid? But nighttime could be her time off. She could have asked for some time off because the mother did mention that Rosa's mother was sick or whatever.
And she goes out to take care of her at night. That's true.
Yeah, so I had that thought too, but then I was like, okay, well maybe this is the situation.
So, The homeowners show Jill around, kind of give her the lay of the land, show her where all the phone numbers are. They mention a guest house and that sometimes their son from college comes home on the weekends and stays in it, but never really lets them know when he does.
Yeah.
Gives her the lowdown about Rosa, about how we just said how she leaves at night to go take care of her mom sometimes. And the alarm system.
Yep, they write down the alarm system, code for her, and on the way out the door, the husband actually sets the alarm and leaves.
So Jill kind of gets settled in. You know, I think she goes and just kind of sits on one of the couches, and then it kind of cuts to nighttime at this point. You know, it's dark. She's been there for a little while. She's kind of reading, doing homework, studying.
I think she might even dozed off a little bit on the couch because I feel like she heard something that kind of like startled her, and I don't know if she had been sleeping or just like really chilling. But do you know, like,
Yeah.
she heard a noise that startled her, and after looking around for a while, she discovered it was Rosa in the atrium of the home. The home has an atrium too, which I think is
So
really
cool.
There's a lot of birds in there, and there's like a pond with these huge
Like
koi fish. And it's Rosa in the atrium. She's feeding the birds and stuff. You can see she's got seed, and she's got like this little cart with some stuff on it. And so like Jill's like, okay, cool.
And they kind of wave and acknowledge each other.
Yeah.
And then there's some scenes of Jill, you know, again studying in the living room, talking to her friend Scarlett on the phone, which she had previously been talking to in school. And they're talking about Bobby, Jill's boyfriend, kind of ex-boyfriend at this point. And Jill wants Scarlett because Scarlett's going to the bonfire, like we said, and Bobby's going to be there. And Jill wants Scarlett to give Bobby the phone number so they can talk.
And Scarlett says that she should really be talking to her friend Tiffany. And Jill wants nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that.
Uh-uh.
So Scarlett finally agrees that she'll give Bobby the phone number and they hang up. I think around this point in the film is when Tiffany actually shows up, unannounced.
Yep, so Jill hears a noise again in the house, and like Tiffany pops out of nowhere. Jill's like, how did you get in here? Like, because the alarm was set and everything. Come to find out, the garage was open.
Oops.
And that's how Tiffany got in, and she's still annoyed with Tiffany, and Tiffany's just trying to like brush it off, like, oh, it was one kiss, it didn't mean nothing.
You know, I thought it was awful ballsy that she just showed up. It's like that would be the last person I'd want to see at that point. So.
And then this girl's like wanting to drink the people's booze that they have in the house, trying to get her to leave the kids to go to the bonfire for a few hours. Like, this girl really pissed me off.
Just a crazy party girl.
Yeah, she kind of drove me nuts a little bit.
So then Jill, you know, basically sends her on her way, says, you know, she's babysitting, she has a job to do.
Get out of here, Tiff.
So she sends Tiffany on her way, and then outside we see Tiffany kind of get a little spooked. It's windy, it's dark out. She thinks she might hear something, so she struggles to get in her car, finally does.
Struggled to get it started.
Horror movie trope, of
Finally
course.
does.
Backs that baby up, and there's a tree landing across the gate.
She gets out to try to move it, and the last thing you see of her is just... I fucking hated her.
And this character, Tiffany, is played by modern-day Scream Queen Katie Cassidy, who later pops up in other movies. I think this might have been one of the first horror roles she had.
And I actually do like her as an actress, but I just hated this character.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to.
She was so annoying. So the last thing you really see is like her struggling to move the tree, hearing a noise, and then just kind of turning around. And then it cuts back into the inside of the house to Jill.
There's one thing about this movie, guys. It is a PG-13 horror, so there's no on-screen kills. You know, they're all off-screen. The movie, I would, in its defense, I still think has quite a bit of suspense to it and eeriness.
Okay, so when me and Joe watched it the other night, it had probably been 8 years since the last time I watched this movie. I watched it a lot as a teenager. I was 13 when it came out. I thought it was a lot of fun. And that's probably why I still enjoy it to this day. But it had been like 8 years. There was a jump scare that got me in this movie. So it's still, it still holds up a little bit. There was a jump scare that got me, and there was another scene that just really freaked me out. And we'll get into both of those later, but I mean, that just shows that even though it's PG-13, there's still a little bit of scare there.
So we cut back to the house with Jill. She at some point gets a prank call from one of the boys at the bonfire, just being a doofus.
One of Bobby's friends.
So, when these phone calls are coming in from the strangers, she's not really sure. Is it just, the jerks from school playing a prank? Like, who is it? What is it? She does end up getting concerned enough at one point to call the police.
Yeah, so she does call the police, and they ask if it's emergency, and she says yes. No. I just keep getting these weird calls, and nobody's really saying anything. It's just a lot of breathing, and it's really freaking me out. Oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's probably just somebody playing a prank on you, blah, 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 blah. Then she sees the maid's car. She thought the maid had left. She thought Rosa had left because she didn't see her anymore. Looks out the window, sees Rosa's car, and she was like, oh, Rosa must still be here. Boy, do I feel like an idiot. You know what I mean? Because she's like, okay, I'm just spooking myself. Hangs up the phone, goes to actually call Rosa's cell, and hears it ringing. There's this long, suspenseful scene of her trying to track down where the phone's coming from. And she finds Rosa's purse, like, in a closet with the phone in it, but she still can't find Rosa, like, anywhere.
Rosa is MIA at this point.
She is. Her car is there, her cell phone and purse are there, but no Rosa.
No Rosa. So at this point in the movie, guys, I would say her concern is definitely escalating, because the phone calls are still continuing to pour in. And at one point, she gets a phone call, and the classic line comes in, have you checked the children? Click.
I do gotta say, instead of her being in a full panic here, she just is kind of like, and walks up the stairs to check on the children.
Yeah, she's creeped out but concerned, but like you said, controlled. She goes up, checks the kids.
First time we see the kids.
This is the first time we see the kids.
First time she sees the kids.
Probably halfway in the movie or something.
Yeah.
And they're fast asleep in bed, so she closes the door, meanders back downstairs. Then another phone call comes. And the stranger asks, how are the children? This is when the proverbial shit kind of hits the fan. Because now she knows that she thinks she's being watched from outside. She thinks the stranger's outside calling. So she calls the police back, full panic.
Mm-hmm.
Says she needs help. They kind of tell her there's nothing they can do at the immediate moment. It'll take 20 minutes for someone to get there.
But they can track where the phone call's coming from if she can keep the person on the line for more than 60 seconds, which at this point, it's been like 10-second phone calls.
Reminiscent of Black Christmas, anyone?
Dee, 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 dee.
Anyway. So at this point, she knows that if the stranger calls back, she's got to try to keep him on the phone for a minute, which she knows is going to be a tough task. But she also is looking out the window and notices a light come on in the guest house.
So she has the number for the guest house on the list that the parents left. She calls, answering machine picks up. She said, hey, it's Jill the babysitter. If you or Rosa are over there, can you please pick up? I just called the police. Something weird's going on, and I would really like somebody to come and wait with me. She hangs up the phone, continues to look, and then sees a shadow of somebody walking by the window, because the curtains are closed in the guest house.
Right.
So she sees a shadow of somebody walking by.
Like a couple times.
And this is where she gets the idea that she's going out to the guest house, which I think is fucking insane.
I was gonna say, pause for a minute, guys. Like, okay, I'm Jill. I just tried calling this guest house. Nobody answered, but I'm seeing somebody walk back and forth.
And I know that there's somebody out there watching me.
Yeah, my fat ass is staying locked in that house, girl.
Get fucking real. I'm staying locked in a room. I'm gonna lock myself in the kids' room, for Christ's sakes. Like, come on.
So, Miss Jill decides to run over to the guest house.
And again, she's in truck, so she makes it there pretty quick.
She does. She gets there, there's no one there. She kind of peeks around.
Nobody there.
She gets a phone call while she's there.
She gets a phone call. She gets him on the phone for more than 60 seconds, so she's pumped, and she's sitting there waiting for the police to call back, and she realized the person called the guest house phone line, not the main house phone line. So she's like, fuck! Fuck! So she gets ready to run back to the main house. She looks at the main house and sees a light on in the 3rd floor where Rosa's quarters are, and she's like, okay, Rosa's there.
So she tears ass back to the house.
Tears ass, drops the flashlight.
What's out of
Fucking Jill.
So she gets back to the house, gets through the house, travels up to Rosa's quarters.
Phone rings. She answers it. She's talking to him. She has him on the phone for more than a minute this time.
Finally.
And she's like, she says, if you're not calling to talk to me, then what do you want? And he says,
your blood all over me.
And then she drops the phone and just continues walking through Rosa's quarters. She hears the shower on, thinks Rosa must be in the shower, goes into the bathroom, opens the shower curtain, nobody in there, turns the shower off. The phone rings again. It's the police. She's freaking out. Jill! 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 The call's coming from in the house! She drops the phone, right? She's just kind of standing there, and then she hears a cell phone ringing, and she turns around, and Tiffany's dead on the floor! So she goes running out of Rosa's quarters. Runs down the stairs, goes into the kids' room, rips the blankets off the bed. The kids aren't there.
Where are the kids?
The kids had put their pillows under the blanket to make it look like they were still in bed. She goes into the kids' playroom and finds them in a toy box. They're scared.
Can I nitpick?
What?
Real quick. Why we have established this is a very luxurious home, very rich family, they're doctors. Why are these kids sharing a room? The house is huge.
These kids are second-class citizens in their home. You know what I mean?
Like, you wouldn't know kids live there whatsoever because there's no toys or anything. Like, come on.
They share a room in this huge, it's probably a multi-million-dollar house, especially being in Colorado. So she finds the kids in the toy box. So at this point, I'm assuming the kids knew that this man was in the house and went and hid. She finds the kids in the toy box. I'm your babysitter, Jill, because now she's introducing herself for the first time as
in a moment of frigging terror. I know, I thought that was funny.
She goes back into the kids' room and is just kind of looking around in a panic and looks up, and the stranger's in the rafters looking down at them. So she goes to the bathroom. She locks themselves in the bathroom with like a cord wrapping it around the handle and like a towel log. She has the kids climb out the bathroom window, which goes into the atrium. She gets into the atrium. They're in there, kind of looking around, waiting for the guy. Turns around and there he is against the glass. She clicks on the steam, what was that? Like a mister type thing so that he can't really see. where they are. She hides the kids, then she's hiding in the koi pond, and the koi pond has like a walkway type footbridge thing going across it. So she's hiding under there, and the stranger comes in, and she gets, goes down beneath the water and opens her eyes, and what does she see?
Rosa at the bottom of the koi pond with a brick on her chest, deader than a doornail.
So she's freaked. Like, now there's 2 people dead. Like, she's, scared she's gonna die. Mister turns off. She's motioning for the kids to get out of there, and the stranger notices that she's under the bridge. So he's trying to get at her. She kicks the bridge over, so he falls in the water. She escapes the atrium. She locks him in there. He's got a fistful of her hair.
Ooh, this scene makes me cringe, actually.
Yeah, it makes my scalp hurt.
Because he shuts the door with that fistful of hair, like, still in the atrium, and then she just, like, cranks her head forward and it rips it all out. Ugh!
And at this point, the kids are hiding again. She gets the door unlocked, but she's trying to find them. When she finally finds them, she realized that the stranger got out of the atrium because there's birds everywhere in the house. The cat's eating a bird, for Christ's sakes. Like, there's birds everywhere. She sees the footsteps. She finds the kids. They go running out the door. The kids make it out just in time for the stranger to grab her and pull her back, and this is where the struggle ensues.
This is where the struggle ensues. So she tries to go running upstairs. He grabs her halfway up. She kicks. They both go falling off the stairs.
Because again,
struggle.
Another non-kid friendly thing is the stairs have like no railing.
No railing whatsoever, either side.
Make it make sense, guys!
So they're struggling. They're going back and forth. They're near the fireplace. He's on top of Jill. She's struggling, grabbing whatever she can. Grabs the bottle of tequila. Throws it against the fireplace. Still struggling. She can't breathe, Les. She can't breathe. She's grabbing. She's scraping for shit. She gets the remote to the fireplace. Woof! Backdraft. Killer goes flying. Ow!
She gets a fire poker for the fireplace, stabs his hand down so that he's stuck, goes tearing ass for the door, and when she rips it open, there's a police officer. Fun fact for fellow Office fans, the police officer she sees is Pam's fiance, Roy, in The Office.
Ding, ding, dong.
So, they've got Jill, on like a stretcher, sitting on a stretcher with like a blanket around her. The officer's telling her that they have the killer in the car. He's got enough tranquilizer to seduce. To
seduce a horse.
The officer's telling her that they have the stranger in the car and that he's got enough tranquilizer in him to sedate a horse. Gross. We're not cutting those.
Okay.
So this is where I get really excited. So the cop car goes driving by, and of course, it's driving by Jill, and as it's driving by Jill, her and the killer make contact. And that's when you can fully see the killer's face, and that's when you know it's Tommy Flanagan. Which got me really excited because I didn't when this movie came out, I had no clue who Tommy Flanagan was, so it meant nothing to me, but he's actually been in quite a few things, and what I know him from mostly is Sons of Anarchy. He plays Chibs. He's also in Peaky Blinders, and what was it, Babe, Braveheart?
Yeah.
He's in Braveheart. He does a lot of he plays in a lot of crime type stuff because of those are true scars on his face. Because of his scars, he plays in a lot of mob or gangster type movies, Sons of Anarchy, Peaky Blinders. Because of his legit scars, those are all real. That's not any cosmetic or anything. So I think honestly the most exciting thing for me was seeing Chibs in this.
Right at the end too, huh?
Yeah, I love Tommy Flanagan. I think he's very unique looking too because of his scars.
And then it cuts to the very end here where Jill's in a hospital. She gets up out of bed. She walks out of her room. There's no one around mysteriously. She hears a phone ring.
Pring.
She's like,
She's like, I'm never answering a fucking phone again, bruh.
So she goes back in her hospital room, closes the door, and the stranger's behind her and he grabs her! And then she wakes up on the hospital bed. It's all a nightmare, and the nurses are trying to calm her down, and she's going, "Ugh."
He's in the house! He's in the house!
No, Jill, no! Wait, Jill, no! Stop! Jill!
And that's the fucking movie, guys, so...
And that's the end of the... Okay. I do like this movie. I like the third act, but I don't love the very hospital ending, actually.
No, because I feel like waking up in a hospital, nobody's there is really cliche for horror movies. Like,
Super
it's been
cliche.
done so many times at this point.
Friday the 13th, anyone?
Wasn't it done in, like, Halloween?
I mean, hospital horror, it's...
I know, but waking up to nobody being there. Scream 5.
It's a good one.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, I agree with you. You want to get into ratings?
Let's get into the ratings. IMDb gives it a 5.1. And Rotten Tomatoes gives it a measly 9%.
When I Googled that, I was like, oh my, I texted you right away. I was like, dude, Rotten Tomatoes only gave it a 9%, which, like, don't get me wrong, it's not the greatest movie in the world, but 9%?
That's a little unfairly low.
They gave Night of the Demons 36%? Fuck you, Rotten Tomatoes. It makes no sense, man.
What would you give this movie from our classic 0 to 5-star rating?
2.5. I've thought about this a lot since I knew we were going to do
What are your
this.
pros and cons?
For the time, I don't think it was the worst acting in the world. You
I
gotta
think the acting is serviceable.
You gotta think of the time it came out into, the early 2000s. Like, there was, like, the early 2000s to me was like the 80s all over again. Do you get what I'm kind of saying when I say that?
The way I sum up the acting in this movie is nobody's winning any awards, but nobody is sticking out like a sore thumb either.
Right.
It's passable.
Yeah, and like I said, there's still jump scares in there that get me. And, you know, when she saw the stranger up in the rafters, that freaked me out. Because it had been so long since I saw this movie that I forgot about those things. So I'd give it a 2.5 out of 5. The acting wasn't the worst. The house seeming kid-free bothered me. I thought that was really unrealistic. And, like, it was just not a kid-friendly house at all. This is about a young girl that's babysitting.
Right.
Make it look like kids live there. There was not even... So, like, that kind of stuff bothered me. The movie has a lot of nostalgia. It's just one of those movies I think about watching when I was a teenager. I loved it. It's like a teenage horror.
It is. Very teen horror film.
Not gory, so that's going to take away some stars.
And again, this is PG-13 horror, so there's not going to be... You know, the language or the gore.
Yeah, so rating it on the same scale, I'm going to rate everything else that we review 2.5. Because it is lacking things.
I'd agree with your assessment, and I'd personally give it a 2.5. Maybe close to a 3 as well. Like you, I was a teenager when it came out. I was 16, so there's a lot of nostalgia there for me with it. Because I also watched it a lot when it first came out for some reason.
I loved it.
It has some issues, of course. I think we've mentioned most of them, is why, you know, I wouldn't rate it higher. But 2.5 to 3 for sure. Decent acting, good creepy storyline. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this review, I think this is a good example of a remake done well. It's not beat for beat at all. There's a lot of differences between it and the first one, but it took the best parts of the first one, like I said, and just kind of expanded on them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the first one.
It's good. If you like this review, guys, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, comment down below, and please share with your friends. And until next time,
Sweet dreams.
Ah.